So the world finally got to see what a showdown between one of the greatest boxers of all time and a YouTuber would look like. I saw the matchup billed by someone, and I can't remember who, as the clash between the man who never lost and the man who never won. And while it's easy to see through the reasons for this fight's existence, the fact that Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather spent 8 rounds in the ring together still seems a little strange, even now. So what exactly did we get? And what exactly did those of you who paid and watched it live receive in terms of bang for your buck? Well, for me, someone who was never going to stay up until 5 in the morning to watch this farce, I felt as though the blow was softened to at least some extent by my unwillingness to part with my money. But even still, after 8 rounds of what amounted to a hugely underwhelming affair, I felt like I had been conned. Although it was my time and not my cash that was the target. And look, it wasn't all bad. There were some fun exchanges, and even with all of the asterisks that surrounded this matchup, Logan Paul displayed a decent chin, improved cardio, and managed not to embarrass himself, all things considered. Now with that said, this fight and its outcome, in my eyes, fell down to Floyd Mayweather and how he viewed this bout in his mind. To summarize the contest, it was a matchup that would have looked moderately competitive to the casual observer. It was dirty, and exchanges out in the open were few and far between. But I suppose what I'm trying to say here is that if there was an expectation that Floyd would run through Logan, those casual fans who tuned in were likely left somewhat surprised by Paul's ability to hang on in there, and do some things that again, to their casual eye, looked impressive. As a result of that, Logan, as someone who has a proven drawing power in boxing, can take that legitimacy and move forward with it, knowing that he can continue to pull in big names, now with a surviving effort against one of the GOATs under his belt. For Mayweather, you could almost say that the opposite is true, where fights with Conor McGregor and of course this fight brought the expectation that Floyd's years of mastery would allow him to walk through his opponents. As a result of the quote-unquote competitiveness of these two fights, Mayweather will be able to continue taking this approach in the future. As a man who is more concerned about his future business endeavors than making a tiny improvement on his already watertight legacy, why would Floyd go in there and beat the brakes off Logan Paul? Why would he train his heart out for 2 months and make a statement about the levels that exist within this sport? Yeah, that might earn him the applause of boxing's hardcore audience. But when has Floyd ever been about pleasing anyone? If you're enjoying this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all of our latest uploads, before leaving a comment to let YouTube's algorithms know that we're fast becoming one of the best MMA channels on the platform. By treating this fight as a bit of fun, nothing more than the exhibition that it is, by dragging both Paul and McGregor into the later rounds, he makes the idea of fighting him more intriguing and more palatable for future opponents. And if Floyd can take home a paycheck in the tens of millions for a fight that he barely needs to train for, yeah, that's the move for the man who proudly embodies his money moniker. Let's not make it a blowout, let's not overexert ourselves, and let's keep at least some competitive interest for the majority of those watching, whether that be the nuances of Conor McGregor's MMA skills or Logan Paul's size. That, in essence, is the Floyd Mayweather playbook at this point in time. So for me, what I saw was a Floyd Mayweather who promised us all week that he was in here just to have fun, make good on that promise. He didn't look terrible by any means, but even a Mayweather at 30% would have made an easy night of Logan Paul by my estimation. I don't believe he trained for this fight, or at least not even with a fraction of the purpose that he would have done in his heyday. And I think in understanding that a softer touch will yield more rewards in the long run, Floyd has etched out a uniquely profitable retirement plan for himself. One that, when you actually stop and think about it, is pretty ingenious in its makeup. So yeah, there were clearly moments in that fight where Floyd could have turned it up, where he could have acted on the very clear reads that he was making. But he didn't need to chase the finish. And though the fight could only have been won by him had he scored a TKO or KO, thanks to the lack of judges, I think the real victory for Mayweather was sealed as soon as we all hit buy on the pay-per-view. Or at least when some of you did. But yeah, while Logan and Jake Paul are playing their own game in exploiting the sport of boxing, I think that while we can all see exactly what the Paul brothers are doing, because of their disinterest in hiding it, I believe that Floyd is the one who is truly conning the sport at this point in time. I honestly believe that Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley holds far more in the way of competitive value than this matchup did, and that's not saying much. On a side note, do be sure to check out my thoughts on that fight since its original booking. That video, if it's not up already, should be within the coming days. But yeah, to put it simply, Mayweather could have won that fight in any fashion he saw fit. He could have trained with more intensity, he could have opted to fight in a style that was more familiar to those of you who watched his run as a professional. I think that his disinterest in making a statement about the merits of a life's work in boxing stands as proof of his motive here. Floyd's in it for the money, and I don't hate him for it, not even slightly. The general public are there to be conned, and as far as I'm concerned, if you can pull off a heist like the one we saw on Sunday night, then good for you. But what did you make of this showdown between Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul? And will you be tuning in for either man's next trip to the ring, knowing what we know about their intentions? Do let us know in the comments section below. We always love to hear from you guys. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and a comment before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our latest uploads. Thank you for watching.